What up, second grade? It is Miss Carl here. Today, we're going to be looking at key details, which I know we've already done, but we're going to be looking at key details in poems. So remember, a key detail is a detail that tells us about what's going on in the story, or helps us understand how the characters are feeling. Now, it's kind of the same thing we look at in a poem. So a key detail in a poem is going to help us understand the poem. What is the poem trying to tell us? Maybe it helps us to understand what the poet wants us to learn from the poem. Maybe it helps tell us what's going on in the poem. So those are our key details in poems. So we're just taking that same concept of key details and we're moving it into a poem. So that same thing, if it helps the poem move along, helps us answer questions about maybe we have from the poem, or help us answer the question about what the poet wants us to learn, then we know it's a key detail. So again, like we talked about before in our other videos, if you read a detail and you have to ask yourself, does this help me understand the poem? Does this help me understand how the poet feels? Those different questions, and that helps us to understand if it's a key detail or not. So we have a short little poem today, and we're going to go ahead and read that, and then we're going to fill in some key details about that poem. So our poem is called A Tortoise. So I want you to follow along silently as I read out loud. A tortoise is a gentle fellow. It lives a life that's calm and mellow. A tortoise can live for quite a long span. In fact, it may even live longer than a man. You'll never discover a tortoise at sea. It lives on the land. That's where it should be. Can a tortoise enter and win a race? Not when it moves at such a slow pace. It has 4 stumpy legs and 4 tortoise feet. Flowers and leaves are its favorite treat. So we're going to go ahead and stop there. I want you to think, were there any details that stuck out to you those are really important? Those are some key details in the text. There were a couple that stuck out to me. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to go ahead and get a piece of paper and a pencil. If you need to pause me and do that, go ahead. So now that you have your piece of paper and pencil, I want you to turn your paper sideways and I want you to draw this on your paper. We need 3 squares, and each one's going to be labeled key detail, key detail, key detail. So I want your paper to look like this. So go ahead and pause me while you do it. And then once your paper looks like this, go ahead and unpause me. So we're going to go ahead and pick 3 key details from what we just read and put them in here. So remember, those key details help us to understand what's going on in the poem, maybe what the poet wants us to learn. So when we read this, we could see that the poet obviously wants to teach us about a tortoise and learn about a tortoise. So if I'm going through here, one fact that really stuck out to me is a tortoise can live for quite a long span. In fact, it may even live longer than a man. That's a big fact, because a tortoise can live for a very, very long time. And that's a huge fact about a tortoise and something that's really important to know from this poem. So in our first box, we're going to go ahead and write that a tortoise can live for a long time. Let's go ahead. Tortoise can live for a long time. Let me go ahead and I'll make this bigger for you guys. So a tortoise can live for a long time. That's one big important detail that we read in this poem. A tortoise can live for a long time. So go ahead, if you need to, pause me and write that. So let's go ahead and keep looking for some key details. Another one that stuck out to me says, you'll never discover a tortoise at sea. It lives on the land. That's where it should be. I'm not going to lie to you. When I hear tortoise, I think of a turtle, and I think of a turtle in the water. But they're different things. So that's a super duper important fact there, because we learned that a tortoise does not go out to sea, it is on land. That's important because that's something that a lot of people might not know. So for our second key detail, we're going to put that a tortoise lives on the land and not the sea. That is an important detail, a key detail that the poet wanted us to learn. A tortoise lives on the land and not the sea. Super duper important. So if you want to go ahead and pause me so you can write that, you may. And then unpause me when you're ready for our last detail. So I want you to go ahead from line, we're going to start here from our word, can a tortoise enter and win a race? Not when it moves at such a slow pace. It has 4 stumpy legs and 4 tortoise feet. Flowers and leaves are its favorite treat. I want you, out of those sentences, what is a key detail that you found? I want you to go ahead, you can pause me, find that key detail, and write it in that third box. Write it in that third box. All right, so now that you have your detail, I want to tell you what I thought was a key detail from that. So out of this last little bit, an important detail I found was that a tortoise eats flowers and leaves. I think that's an important detail for learning about a tortoise, is what they eat, because without food, you can't survive. So I think that's an important detail. So a tortoise eats flowers and leaves. That is important to know if we're learning about a tortoise. That's an important fact, is what do they eat? If you had that for your key detail, awesome job. If you want to go ahead and write that under the detail that you had, that would be awesome as well. So go ahead, and if you need to add that detail, go ahead and pause me and then unpause me when you're ready. All right, second grade, awesome work. I want you to remember that when we're looking for key details, we're looking for important details that help us in a poem understand the poem, help us to learn what the poet wants us to learn, and just is important to the poem. All right, second grade, see you next time.